Honestly, there are multi-million-dollar brands that need to fire their email marketing teams because their emails look like this instead of this. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to take an email like that Olipop was doing and turn it into an email like this one that I built for them as a non-designer. This is going to be an easy tutorial to follow to make sure that you're creating the highest converting email designs possible without sacrificing revenue. So let me jump straight into it. Alright, so I've opened up a new Figma file, and this is the old design that Olipop was using for their cart and their checkout abandonment. And it's super plain, there's nothing really going on here, and I think they could do it a lot better. So all I've done as a non-designer is I've essentially gone and found some assets I really like. So I know it's basically a checkout abandonment, and I know that I want to make it essentially a concept of the orange cream being abandoned. But I do want to incorporate some other elements. So I found some of these images on their website, literally just save them, save their kind of promise on their website as well, and their logo. And that's essentially it. There's nothing complicated about it. So to start, what I want to do is I want to press R and create a rectangle. And I'm essentially just going to drag it down and I'm going to resize it like this. So the dimensions for a typical email should usually be around 700 in width, and I'm just going to make this 4070 as a guesstimate for the length. This will probably be a little bit shorter, but for now, that's essentially what I'm going for. Now, next thing I want to do is I am just going to go ahead and frame this. So what this is going to do is it's just going to help me organize my thinking, and everything is going to fall underneath here, right? So this, for example, is essentially going to be renamed to main template, just so I can keep track of everything. Now what I want to do is I personally like to go ahead and do this if ever I'm designing. Again, take this as a non-designer. I like to create the kind of width of what the hero visual section will look like. And so I create this other section, hero visual section. Great. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to go grab this this logo. I'm going to place it here, and I again just like to rename everything so I can keep it organized. So this is the logo. This is exactly what they use. I'm just going to keep it there. And I want to use the same headline. So let me just go press T for text, which is a nice shortcut. And in the house, I'm just rewriting what they have, except the difference is I do want it to be slightly bigger. So let me just go make sure I do that. So we're going to do this and make sure I do that. And let's place it in the middle. And what I'm going to do is choose the correct font. Now, a font that I really like for this is one of these. So this is a font that I think will suit this brand. It's just super, super simple. As similar as I can get it without downloading their actual brand assets. And let's make it slightly bigger. So here we have this, and for me, this is going to be a little bit too plain. I do want to maybe maintain the original look that they're using. And so on my other screen, what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the look that they have right now. So let me go and choose, I'm actually going to make this a white text, all right? And you'll see what I'm doing shortly. And then I'm going to add a stroke. Now the stroke is nice because it's just like a little bit of an outline. I'm going to change the weight to about 3, see how that looks. That looks good. And the stroke is what I'm going to make this color. I feel like it's a very heavy color, so I don't want to do that too much. And what I'm going to do for this background is I am going to make it a blue. So if I just come here, and let me just choose kind of a blue like this, should be fine. And this I actually want to make a little bit thicker. Let's make it a 5. Cool. So that gives me a little bit more to work with, and even so, you can kind of play around with this. Change it thicker. I don't like it that thick, so I'm just gonna make it a 7. Cool. So we kind of have something working over here, and now what I want to do is I want to add my main image just so I can keep track of what's actually happening. So let's go and place this over here. Cool. And so the way that I want to do this is I essentially want it to overlap in a very clean way. So I'm going to drag this slightly up. I'm going to make it blend. That's a big part of email marketing and the design intelligence is you want to make sure there's a continuous journey for your user. And that's why oftentimes emails do look like landing pages, and it's intentional that way. Now what I want to do is, unlike this email that they have, I want to add a little bit more text. Maybe. just like a bit of quirkiness. And now the only difference is I do need to minimize this a little bit. Let's make it like that. And same kind of thing is I actually want to change the line height here. Let's see what it looks like that. Okay. So let's make it a 90 and let's test 110. Cool, that's a lot better. Now what I'm going to do is drag this here. I'm using the same fonts already. I'm going to change it to, you know what, let's make this an orange. And we're going to make the stroke the white. Cool. And here again, we're just going to change the stroke to about a 6. That is a bit too much. Let's change it to 5. And let's change this to a little bit bigger as well. Cool. So that looks decent to me. I think that this stroke is a bit too strong. Let's make it a 3. Cool. That's perfect. And so here I feel like that looks a lot better, but it is still too flat. So before I get to fixing the flatness that you'll often face in emails and pressing R again, I'm going to create a button now. And so with the button, what I want to do is I don't want it to be boring, so I'm just going to change until I like the rounded. So yeah, let's even it off to a 20. And with this, I want to make sure that we're using their colors. So we're just changing to the default green that they were using. And here, I want to make sure that we're using text and a call to action that is higher converting. That's the whole point of this. It's not just redesigning the email for fun, but redesigning it so that it is higher converting. And so cart. Return to cart is the best one. Complete your order. And complete your order is another really, really good CTA to use. So what we want to do is we do want to maybe minimize this slightly. And we're going to change the fonts. I don't think that this font actually suits. So let's go find one. Okay, I quite like this for their branding. It's pretty decent. So, and I like the thickness. I think this will work well. And now all we have to do is just adjust. Cool. And there we go. And so what I want to do is make sure that the button is actually grouped so that we can always copy paste it and it keeps the same formatting. Cool. Button, and let's change this to sub headline and this one to headline. Cool. So we've essentially got the top section, but as you can see, it's still a bit flat, like it's missing something. So what I'm going to do is on the screen, I'm going to quickly find a image and I will just like speed through this. I'm going to find an image of perhaps some clouds or something interesting, and I'm going to turn it into an overlay. So let's go ahead here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this image. Great. And on the side here, what I've done is I've added this little cloudy image, right? And so what I've done is I've just like taken this image, all right, and I am basically taking it in, I'm putting it over here, and I want to make sure that it blends in correctly. And so I am doing let's do a nice overlay like this, all right? And we want to make sure that it stays within. So let's do that. Let's make sure it goes there. Cool. Again, take this with a grain of salt. I'm sure there's easier ways to do things, but take it as a non-designer creating this. This to me is like miles better. It adds a little bit of depth, a little bit of layering. I think it looks so much better. I just want to see if there's better settings. Actually, the hard light I prefer slightly more, and I like the blue that we're using. So let's just make sure that this is aligned. Perfect. And what I want to do here is, again, it looks a little bit too flat. And so what I want to go ahead and do is I want to add a little bit of a shadow perhaps. So let's go ahead and do that. And do a slight one there, but mostly one like that. Blur it a little bit so it looks a bit more organic. And let's just change it to a 40 and see how that looks. Cool. Now, I'm not crazy about this. I want to figure out how we can do this better. Okay, cool. So I think I have an idea. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to drag this to the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to remove the drop shadow. I'm going to put it back here as a upper layer. Just going to make sure I line them. So that looks decent to me. Again, you know, take it with a grain of salt, but I think that is slightly better. And let's make sure we move it up a bit. Okay, I don't like the alignment right now, so I'm just going to move everything up. I feel like it is taking too much space. And keep in mind, with the abandoned checkout flow, what we want to prioritize is we really, really want to prioritize that it is a short, simple, to the point email. We don't want to overcomplicate anything. Just go ahead and do that. Cool. And so what I want to do is basically move this section up. Cool. And this, I'm just going to minimize. Great. So now we have a decent looking email so far. Is the hair of it section's kind of done. And so now it comes to the point where let's do another rectangle and I want to complete this section. Now this section, let's bring it down again slightly. So let's do this. Cool. And now this new section that I'm creating is going to be the part that is important because it's going to make sure that this is a continuous email. And so what I want to do is drag it down below the other elements and I'm going to make it like this. But now let me make sure I can drag this up for the shadow, but just, okay. Okay. So I'm not the biggest fan of this shadow, but I do think it's doing what it needs to. And so, you know, you can play around with this. I'm not going to spend too much time with it, but I think that looks pretty decent. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure that there is a section showing exactly what they left behind. This is super, super important, similar to what they have here, but this is a little bit flat. This is not probably going to convert as well as it could. And so what I want to make sure we do is we fix that. And so what I want to do is I want to create a pretty much another rectangle section. And this is going to be our product section. It's going to be like this. I want it to be a slightly darker color. So let's go to, let's maybe take this and let's lighten it a little bit. Great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to round it again. I like the 20 rounding. We're going to add a stroke so there's a bit of back outline. And the way that we want to do this is I want it to be a little bit like that. Cool. And let's make it a 3 weight. And so you can see how that looks now. It's essentially just looks a little bit better, and this is going to be the feature section. So let's make it a bit bigger. Extend it. Cool. And now what I want to do is go to my saved elements that I saved just now, and I'm going to add this in here. Cool. So I'm going to add it in here. But again, this does look slightly too flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another triangle. And now, hear me out. What I want to do is I'm going to make this a slightly... So let's try this. So you can see I'm creating an uneven triangle just to add a little bit of layering to this. And what I want to do is add this dark color in. I'm going to move this down. Cool. And then that looks a little bit better. Let's do that. And then let's go and get the lemon or the orange that I saved. Cool. And we're going to move it over here. Perfect. And now what I want to do is I want to group this. Just name a product, and I do want a little bit of an effect. So I'm going to make it a little bit of a shadow, just a slight one. It's not going to be anything crazy. I don't want it to be a 40% shadow. Again, depth goes a long way in keeping and maintaining interest throughout the email. You have to remember that no one has an attention span, so you have to kind of make it a little bit more interesting to at least look at. Cool. All right, next up, we're going to change this text, and we're going to say exactly what they left behind. A lollipop, cream. Cool. Now let's make it a reasonable. All right, perfect. And what I want to do is I want to make it consistent with the coloring we've used already. So let's use that. I think that looks all right, but this color is kind of conflicting. So I'm going to make it slightly lighter, just slightly. There we go. And let's go make sure. Okay, the line height is a little bit intense here. Make it a 40. Perfect. I'm going to align it here. But this I don't like the look of, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this color for a bit of added depth. I'm going to change it to that. Perfect. Okay, cool. So this looks slightly better, and again, you can always adjust things as you like them or don't like them. I think this could be darker for the sake of contrast. And now we have a section like this, and I want to make sure that we can group this as well. So let's make sure. Okay. And group this. Cool. So we're going to group this, and this is going to be inclusive of the other group I made. Now what we can do is we can move this slightly up so it doesn't take as much space. And I want to copy paste this. And that is why we do grouping. It's way more efficient. Cool. And now I really, really like the way that this is coming out so far. Like, this as an email on its own would probably work. Just with some adjustments and, you know, fixes here and there to fonts, etc., etc. But I think overall it does look decent. And so now we want to do our next section. And so what I want to do is find a picture of clouds maybe, just to tie it in a little bit better and add I like to add these different elements. So as you can see over here, just to make it a continuous email instead of just an image. It doesn't look as good. And so what I want to do is on my other screen, I am finding a picture of clouds quickly. And so here we go, obviously ahead of time. I just wanted to prepare it. And so what we're going to do here, just want to make sure that we move it up and make sure it's layered. Cool. So now we have this little cross section, and now we just need to align it and make sure it's decent. Cool. And here what we're going to do is add another layer. And this is going to be a new section. So let's go make sure we do that. A new section like this. And let's make sure. So this is why it's just best practice to have names. I didn't name anything. I'm not going to go back and do it, but it does get a little bit confusing with where things are at. So what I want to do is I want to make this color. And so this is going to look a lot better. So let's make sure. Okay, so just off camera I fixed a few things, but obviously this is now fitted in, and just an FYI, I don't know if this is best practice, probably not. But again, as a non-designer, the best way that I did it is I just chose my frame, I changed it to a section, and then I undid it. And then what I did is I just changed this back to a frame, and it essentially cuts everything outside of that frame. So that's the way that I did it. I don't know if that's best practice. But with that being said, what I want to do now is I want to add a review section. This is one of the most important things that's always left out of a checkout abandonment. And this is going to cost you a lot of money. And so what I want to do is I want to word for it. And I want to change it to essentially the same way this is done. So actually, what I'm going to do is I am going to showcase the mess that comes with editing designs while you're doing it. And I'm just going to copy paste this as it was. Same font and everything makes it better. And I'm going to... That way I don't have to do any reformatting. It's still a heading. The only thing I do want to do is perhaps change the font a little bit. Now, keep in mind again that I don't have the save font, so you can change it however you would want. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to use this as a chance to have their review section, and the way that I'm going to do it is include a product picture of all their products. So let me think about the way I want to do this. I know that I would want a section like this, and perhaps we have a review over here. And we're going to make this rounded, so let's do this 20 corner radius. 20 is my favorite. So 20. What I want to do is section, just to clean it up a little bit. Image. Okay. And I'm going to make it perhaps like that is perfect for now. And then the color I want to make this is, let's make it somewhat the same color, but perhaps a bit lighter for some dynamic change. Perfect. And I do want to add a stroke. Again, just for that layering, I think it's important. Perhaps I can use this. Maybe I should. Let me actually use the color we've been using and do it like this. Cool. And so we'll obviously adjust this as we go along. But for right now, that looks just fine. Maybe move this up slightly. So what I'm going to do is going to find a image of 5 stars just from a just a whatever site. I'm going to adjust this slightly. Looked a bit weird there. And I just found these, which is fine. I think this is all that I need. And I'm probably going to end up using a font somewhat like this. So I'm going to go copy this. I'm going to paste it over here. It's already got the formatting I need. Pop game. Let's make that the heading. And let me stick to their branding of doing that dark green that they like to use. Okay. So I'm just going to keep it like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a review on their website on the side here, and I'm just going to move it over. So let's go and do this. And what I want to do, make sure I change the formatting. Cool. Cool. Let's go and do it there. And so what I did is I intentionally found a review of probably their ideal customer. Their ideal customer is probably already a consumer of the famous drinks that we already know of, right? So they probably already consume Coca-Cola or some other drinks that we're kind of competing with. So I wanted to make it easy for that same customer to kind of make a choice of what they wanted, right? And so I thought it was best to add that kind of review where it tackles a common pain point is, why would I choose your brand and not another brand? And a common, I would imagine a common issue for them is just, why Olipop? And so I want to make sure that that is tackled. It's one big thing that we do in our checkout and cart abandonment flows that makes a huge difference is, hey, what is the difference between you and a competitor, or why you, or, things like that are a big, big game changer for a brand like this. And what I want to do is, I think that I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to go drag this down, kind of finish this section off. I'm going to add this underneath here, just over here as like the additional section. It's always nice to add this, like a little disclaimer section. And then this, it's a little bit too flat as usual. You guys probably know by now that I don't like flatness in my designs. And so let's go and change it to somewhat like this. And I actually want it to go to the left this time. Let's do a 35 gradient. Perfect. So I'm pretty happy with that look. I think it's decent. I think it adds a bit of layering. This I'm going to keep about the same, and I am going to grab this section. So let me just make sure. Okay, I have mistakenly added these as 2 separate groups, so I'm just going to copy the one. All right, There we go. So we're gonna do this, and then this section would essentially be the footer section, and that is just like the find your flavor, things like that. But over here, you can see a complete full email redesign from what they had previously. So there's huge differences. Number one, we're not letting their logo take up additional space. That is unnecessary. We want this to be a continuous landing page. We want to add a little bit of quirkiness. We want the call to action to be way higher up, which is what they don't have right now. We also don't want like this blanket poor image use. We want to make it continuous and a little bit engaging, more on brand. We want to show exactly what they left behind as well and add a bit of urgency by showing limited stock. Then we also want a CTA that reflects exactly what the main point of this email is. It's an abandoned cart. So we want to add a little bit of pressure. Instead of shop now, because they're not just shopping, they've left behind their own order. We'll say, hey, complete your order. It makes it sound like this product has already been shipped. It's kind of already in the process of being packed. And so it's a bit of an inconvenience for them not to accept that. We've also made sure that we tackle a pain point, because oftentimes it's not just a pricing thing and people don't just forget their product behind. What's actually happening is they don't trust you. And so you want to make it easy for them, number one, to return to their cart. And number two, you want to make sure that their pain points are answered. That's why we want to include this section, which they don't have over here. We're adding reviews. We're also adding this section over here. And then obviously it would be the footer section exactly like this. But overall, it does quite a lot of things, and there should be a way higher conversion. And so that's exactly how I would rebuild a multi-million-dollar brand's emails, and the way that you can take it into your own business to make sure you have higher converting emails, number one, and number two, that you're following a formula that absolutely works. Now, with that being said, highly recommend you watch some of the other design videos that I've done, where we have done designs for Gymshark, we've done designs for multiple other brands. Go take a look at that. The most recent one was AG1. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. But if you do want an agency to come in and do these designs for you, where we have a set team, keep in mind I'm not a designer, so you can only imagine what the designs are that we can spit out, then go down below, book in a call. We'd be happy to entertain the idea of working together. We really want to work with the best in the world, because we are the best in the world. And so with that being said, go down below, book in a call. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.